Welcome back. So the caulk's just about dry. We're going to start sanding. I'm going to start sanding this front panel out so that we can make sure that it's nice and flush with the beginning like I was talking about because of that little bow it's got. So we're going to take that out with a random orbital sander. Now you want to use a random orbital sander because it's going to have less of a pattern to leave behind. When you use a random orbital sander, the way that it spins is kind of randomized. It kind of swashes back and forth a little bit as it goes, and that gives you it gives you a smoother sanding finish, and it also makes it so there's not so much of a pattern. Now the other thing is when you're ever going to do sanding work, especially when you have something like MDF, I would highly recommend some type of breathing protection because there's going to be a lot of particles in the air. This does have a catch on it, but I would not trust any catch that there is. I still say use some kind of breathing protection. This is maybe a little bit too much, but I don't have a dust mask laying around, so this is what I'm using. But you can pick up something like this for like 30 bucks, I think, with the filters, or you just get a dust mask for about 5 bucks. You get a pack of 3 or 4 of them. So that's what I would recommend, and let's get started.
Alright, so I got my breathing protection on, and we're going to get sanding. As you can see, we got this line here, and that's what we're trying to take out. So we're going to start off with a pretty hefty 60 grit sandpaper, and a lot of sanders, pretty much it goes on just hooking, just Velcro basically. So without further ado, we're going to get started and just start sanding that line out. Alright, so tell here we've got it sanded down a lot. It's getting a lot smoother right here. So you did a pretty good job of getting this smoothed out. Now we can take a less abrasive approach with it. And I can switch over to the 220 grit. Which is going to be our finishing sander, or finishing pad pretty much. And we're just going to go across again, and I'm just going to smooth that out a little bit and get the entire thing feeling smooth. Alright, so that feels nice and smooth. Can't even really feel a seam there anymore. You can kind of see it because this dark spots here, what you're seeing there is actually where the glue has seeped into the MDF, because it just kind of sucks it in, which is good because that'll make it nice and solid, a nice solid joint. So I'm going to take my breathing protection off here.
Alright, so now that we got a nice solid seam here without any major bumps, it's nice and smooth, feels kind of like one piece. What we're going to do is pretty much just get to painting at this point. That's all we got left to do is paint and then seal, and then we can start putting the components in, and then I'll start wiring stuff up. Alright, so welcome back. It looks like the caulk's already dried up and ready to go, so I can start sanding it smooth. You'll notice I added in these corner braces to each corner. I used a little bit different size for the back corners because the fans needed to fit in there, so I had to get thinner wood, and the thinnest thing I had was oak, which is fine because the oak is going to be a lot sturdier than just the pine because it's a harder wood. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So I'm going to go ahead and start sanding through here. Alright, so sanding is finished. Now all we got left to do is paint and put the final poly coat on there to really get everything solid and protect it, and that'll be it. But before we start painting, I'm going to go ahead and vacuum it out. So that'll be fun. There is one thing nagging me, is that I didn't actually fit to see if that USB front panel stuff would fit in that hole. So I got to make sure. I'm sure it will, but man, I hope it's not one of those things that comes back to bite. So here's the USB front panel piece, and you're gonna not fit, huh? Yep, it's just a tiny bit, too just a tiny bit too small to fit the way I wanted it to. See if I can go in from the front here and make it fit. Oh, might get lucky. Might get lucky. Oh, it looks like it's a little bit, the hole is a little bit too small to fit this, which is fine because I can just widen that hole up a little bit. Alright, so we're sanded and vacuumed, and now it's time to finally start the painting portion of this. So I've chosen just plain semi-gloss black paint for my color here, because like I said, I'm just going to use simple black paint. And I'm using an interior paint, and it's a enamel. And that should give me a fairly smooth coat, and I shouldn't have any issues with this. Especially since I'm going to seal it with some polyacrylic, it's really not going to matter too much. The gloss isn't even going to be a factor because the polyacrylic will have its own gloss. So you just want to go ahead, get some paint on your brush, and start painting away. So there's nothing really to worry about or to be careful about here. It doesn't really matter how you put it on. Just don't go too thick in like your corners, because you don't want to get a pool of paint build up here. So you're just going to put some on and spread it around. When you start to, once you get all the paint on there, that's when you're going to want to go ahead and brush it all on in the same direction. Brushing in the same direction will give you a more uniform look finish. But for the initial beginnings of getting the paint on, it doesn't really matter. And depending on how this looks after one coat, you may call it done after one coat, or you might decide, hey, let's put on a second coat. Right now, it's looking like one coat would probably be plenty. I'm actually going to put my paint can here so that I can not have to reach so much. thing to note that if you're painting a vertical surface, that's when you really got to watch for issues with paint getting into pools, especially down near the bottom of the where it's joining up. You don't want a whole lot of paint pooling up on the bottom of the thing you're working on, because it'll just look bad. So make sure you're keeping, use a good amount of paint, but don't use so much that it just becomes this waterfall that you can't spread effectively. Looks like we're good with our paint job here. It actually is looking pretty decent. So this is, it's got a decent little gloss to it right now, but once I put the final poly coat on it, it'll actually have a real nice shine to it, and it'll look a lot smoother. So yeah, we're looking pretty good. So I'm gonna go clean off my paintbrush, give this about 2 hours to dry. Actually, probably about an hour to dry. And I'm gonna stop jiggling the camera, but I'm gonna give it about an hour or two to dry. And after that, we'll be coming back and we'll be doing final poly coat on it. And then after that, it'll be ready for me to start putting my parts in. And that's gonna be the super fun part. I'm gonna have to go buy some bolts and nuts and junk. Damn. All right, see you next time.